Good evening. Welcome to, I think this is the second Contemporary Perspectives lecture of this semester, Magdalena Campos-Pons. Before we start, I would just like to ask all of you who have cell phones to stun them, and also to remind you that there will be a question and answer period when Magdalena's finished with her lecture. We do not have a microphone, but we found that in this hall it's actually not so hard to stand up and ask your question, and she'll answer it. And then afterwards, there will be a small reception out in the Commonwealth Gallery with cookies and beverages for those of you that would like to talk to Magdalena up front and close. Okay, my name is Lynn Allen, and I'm the director of the School of Visual Arts, and in keeping with the objectives of the Contemporary Perspectives lecture series, which is to invite artists whose art and career offers new ways of looking at contemporary art and culture, Magdalena Campos-Pons brings an incredible array of media and ideas, bridging the past and the present. Her story is unique. Born in Cuba of Nigerian ancestry, she became a key figure among the generation of artists who came of age in post-revolutionary Cuba. She settled here in Boston, not because she wanted to leave Cuba, but because she married a Bostonian. Her story is part of a larger story. A choice is made to make a marriage, to have children, to live as one from somewhere else. Themes of separation and dislocation are part of this story. It is also about survival and an investigation of history and memory. It is about building a life in the midst of absence and loss in an ever-changing present. Magdalena Campos-Pons works across many boundaries, including painted constructions, multimedia installations, and large-format photographs, as well as oil, clay, wood, and prints. To mention all her accomplishments is not necessary. You could read about them in this month's Art in America article. She is, however, in many important collections worldwide, including museums in Tokyo, the Victoria and Albert in London, and all the New York museums, among many, many others. I'm not mentioning because she says it makes her nervous. Please join me in welcoming Magdalena Campos-Pons.
Good evening. I need to thank Lynn Allen for inviting me tonight to this lecture. I have a long relationship of work with Lynn, and BU is very lucky to have this lady in this institution, and Boston is really fortunate to have Lynn move to the city. She's somebody who will bring a lot of new scenes and wonderful energy to the art action in this town. I thank you all for coming tonight, Monday after Thanksgiving. I am absolutely delighted and surprised to see many faces here, a colleague of mine from the School of the Museum of Fine Art and students of mine from there and the BU crowd. It's a pleasure to have the opportunity to be invited to this series of lectures, and always get very nervous when I need to contextualize my work and follow some speaker that you have witnessed with me in this institution. As Lynn said, yes, I have a career that is complex, that is built upon many questions that I have placed to myself and placed to the context of what means, from my point of view, to be a practitioner in the middle of the 21st century, what it means to be a contemporary art practitioner in the context of the First War, when you are raised and you coming from the periphery, the Third War, what it means to be a contemporary practitioner in the context of a very complex kind of plateau in which the world of minorities and the world of artists, of women, others, have been always questioned in many different sets of complex paradigms. A few days ago, in one of my classes at the museum school, I was very relieved when I hear one artist that I admire for many, many years, and I use as an example for my students to take information from and ideas from and questions from, Villa Selmin's. And we were looking at Villa Selmin to Art 21st Century program, and she was referring to her own practice at some point, and she used the word corny. I always, when I talk about my work, I say they are an incredible amount of corniness in what I have trying to say. And I always say, I say that because I don't understand completely the meaning of being corny in the English language. But when I saw here Villa Selman say that regarding her work, I have a great sense of relief. And I found some sort of oh, this is wonderful. She is corny too. So I have some kind here of a back supporting here. But I say that, and the way that I have using the term corny is connected with something else. It's connecting with trying to search with some sort of deep looking and without fear to encounter places that you maybe don't want to touch. When you approach, what do you want to do in your work, and what are you thinking of about your work? So for me, the idea of being corny is about being sentimental if I need, because it touches a feeling or a place in the question that I need to place that is important to me. To not be scared away for putting into the context of my work issues that may be called biography or autobiographical or personal, because I deeply believe that all the artists, and I say all the artists, and I have researched and have been inspired by many, many, many. And those, they have been very important to me, and they have been important forces that move my making and sustain my making in the day of despair and suffering at the studio, are people that I believe that really look carefully of the question of what is personal, what moved them, what touched them, and what really talk about the time that they're living in, and placing question to that time without fear, without the risk of being right or wrong, but really looking into something that is fundamental to their own search. So in doing that, I have some way, somehow, of course, placing some question in the idea of diaspora, in the idea of memory, history, and identity. But diaspora, history, identity, memory are very common phrases and very common territory in the practice of art today. But they come across as necessity, and they come across as necessity for a particular body of artists and a particular group of people who needed to go to this area, who needed to really look into the place of the archive and to search to a story that had been not represented, and to look at aspects of representation of human condition that had been not necessarily put in the front of contemporary practice, and upon that build some way the structure of their work and the structure of their thinking. And I believe that my work is placed into that. The question of fragmentation that I use again and again as a reference in the work is about real fragmentation. When Lynn said my story is not necessarily typical, but it's not necessarily unique, it's a story that referred to many, many, many other black bodies in the context of the Western world. We come in from separation, not necessarily voluntary, forced separation, and they are a sort of a trace of a link of a scarf that runs through that narrative, and it's a story that have not been imprinted in the context of Western art. When I was very young, growing up in Cuba as a young art student, I remember being aware there was no women of African descent in the collection of the National Museum, and for that matter, it was only one woman in the collection of the National Museum. So around 14 years old, I decided that I am going to be a woman in that collection. I happily could announce to you that this had already happened. But it was a very, it was a big decision, and in some way, a sort of a challenge to myself. And it was a challenge that was placed to many other of my contemporaries. And these are some of maybe important paradigms that have been placed and that I am working with and that I have present in the context of my work. When I am thinking about how I have constructed a discourse, maybe a vocabulary, I don't believe in that, but let's call it that way, a language, I believe in that. It's upon about many, many influences. Music, it was fundamental in my life. I have the privilege to be raised in a context of education in which music, theater, dance were all together, and I grew, participated, and formed myself as an artist in this kind of exchange. Film was very important to me. Theater was very important to me. And a ballerina, when I was young, I have the body of one, just that never practiced. So it was really an interdisciplinary kind of practice, an interdisciplinary kind of bringing up. And that was something that I believe that in some way, very subtle, influenced the direction of my work. I consider my practice as a hybrid. I consider the practice in the context of a language that we use in Cuba, or a phrase that we use in Cuba. We could say a Creole, or maybe an ajiaco. An ajiaco is no way to translate it for me in English, but it's a casserole that contains many different scenes, many different roots, potato, sweet potato, banana, manioca, okra, all together. And in the end, it's such a rich, it's complex, and it sustains you. And this, in some way, somehow, is something that I am interested in to define in my work. I have never tried to find a particular term used in the context of Western art to say this is what I am, postmodernist, post-multiculturalist. No one of those things interests me in particular. I am a practitioner artist, and I really do art from the center of my body, some location between my heart and my stomach, some place there, something take place, it moved to my brain, and eventually I found way through the hands to put it into place. This sounds corny, but this is what it is, and this is what I believe. And also in my teaching, which I do not separate from my art making, I try to tell my students that they are something about what I call inspiration find you working. You are trying to search, you are questioning yourself, and then you found at the same time responses to your question and to the thing that really made you don't have simple and clear and relaxed sleeping hours. I don't sleep much. I spend many hours after 12 midnight sketching, thinking, sometimes simply eye-opened, putting things together. That doesn't happen maybe until 2 years later. But that is part of the process, an important part of the process. I have been lucky enough, and I say this with a lot of sense of appreciation to the people involved with, to have what I consider still a young age. I am a 48 years old woman, a kind of a survey of my body of work. What I have chosen to share with you tonight is literally a view of a walking through of the exhibition, Everything is Separated by Water, that was put together by the Indianapolis Museum of Art and curator Lisa Freeman, which I met in 1991. I was living in Canada. Lisa Freeman was a curator at the Institute of Contemporary Art in Boston. I was participating at that time in an exhibition which title was The Bleeding Heart, I believe. It was a collection of Latin American artists, including Frida Kahlo, to a very young generation that include myself. And Lisa Freeman at that time was an assistant curator of the museum, and she wrote me a letter that said, if one day I am in a position of power, I want to do something with your work. Not only that she, when was in a position of power, had put together this magnificent exhibition, but through that, she went to do her master's degree in my work and do many, many other presentations of it. I believe, too, in loyalty, an interesting, corny phrase in the English language. And I decided to make the show in Indianapolis with Lisa Freeman because when she came to visit my studio here in Boston, I found the letter and I showed it to her. And she was at the studio with another important curator. They were visiting together and they couldn't believe that I have the letter. I don't never throw a paper out. So don't send me bad notes because I keep them. I made sure them 20 years later. But Everything is Separated by Water. What Lisa did was literally look through the body of work that I produced since I left Cuba, 1991. I was in Canada for 2 years, to sometime in 2004. And what she tried to do, and kind of we did it together, was to make a selection of different body of work from that particular period that maybe represent some of the major ideas that have been important to the direction and the construction of the body of work until that point. When I came to Boston in 1988 to study at Mass College of Art, that was my first introduction to media work. I had been for many years very interested in performance, video, film, and I have not done that in Cuba. When I came to Mass College of Art, I focused in performance art, interrelated media, and any of you that is familiar with Mass College of Art know what this program offers: Super A, video, performance, and any other form of art related with media. And that was really the beginning of that particular interaction for me. So what I'm going to do is to start enjoying the presentation, and I'm going to ask to have lie down for me so I get a little more relaxed, and I could go through and start showing the image. So everything is separated by water. We run at the Indianapolis Museum from February 24, 2007 until 6 months later, and went to Miami Bass Museum, and it just come down in Miami. The Indianapolis Museum has had a major renovation work done. It was similar to what happened will be happening at the Museum of Fine Arts in the next few years. And this was the first exhibition after the renovation. Yes, they made these huge banners that were all around town and in the entrance of the museum. This is actually before you enter the room where the exhibition started. Everything is separated by water. It's a piece that I did in 1990 when I was in Canada at the Banff Center for the Arts. And it was part of a body of work that was called A Woman at the Border. And literally was a commentary in the question of that, being in the limbo. I was not in America where I was coming. I was not in Cuba. I was living in Canada, and I was waiting. And literally, I was trying to create a body of work that contextualized that particular experience. The image that the designer chose for the banners belonged to another piece that I will show you later, but this is the entrance of the exhibition. They use a particular color, blue as a theme for the entire show, and of course, blue for the sea. This is the piece that gives name to the exhibition. Everything is separated by water, including my brain, my heart, my sex, my home. And the structure of the piece is a female body that has been split, and she's standing in both littered houses. One house is representing the house of knowledge, and the other house represents the house of the heart. I was very interested in this particular period of my work in imagery coming out of Mesoamerica, and I studied several of the Latin American codices, Codice Borgia, Codice Vaticano, Codice Azteca, and the codices were a sort of a diary that they were taking place during the colonial period, and it was a kind of a narrative of the daily life of the Indian as they were seeing at that particular time. And they are all writing in amate bark paper, which is a very heavy paper, and gesso, and they have a really a beautiful quality. And the 2-liter house in the bottom and the column of water in the center actually coming out of this codice, in particular the Codices Aztec. In the very top of the image is a clay tablet and glass, and in one side says brain and the other side says heart, and the entire body is surrounded by littered a stream of barbed wire. So in that piece is mixing wood, barbed wire, glass, clay, textile, because they are littered textile wrapping the barbed wire, and they are little larger than life size, and this is where you enter the space. That's the first thing that you see. After, to the side, you have this very blue wall, and the whole text of the exhibition, and then they are the brochures, and you keep going. And this was how they built the title for the show. We only have a still image, but actually this is a kind of latitude, longitude construction, and they were moving such as water. So as you enter to the right is this piece that is from the same series, A Woman at the Border, and this particular installation is called Talking About Tree, White Pine, Black Pine, Endangered Species. I don't going to be showing close-up of the pieces because we are just going through the entire room. But all the pieces to the left are sort of masculine, and to the right are kind of feminine. And if you see it, the one in the left are little light in color, and the one in the right are all black and darker. And they have opening, they are more voluptuous. They are the female. And it's an autobiographical piece, all of them at this moment, and I call it Endangered Species because interracial marriage, it was as strange, received, and perceived in Cuba as in America, and it was a play for questioning. But more important than that, in that particular piece, what is important for me was my interest in drawing. So you could call this piece a drawing, but I was thinking in drawing in this piece, and the possibility of drawing in the space, and the possibility of using a carving procedure and methodology as an interesting way to build a drawing. Of course, it's too about installation. I am really influenced here by West African carving tradition. I love the tradition. I have been curious about it. But my question is, how do you go there without repeating what had already happened? How you could go there and create some sort of new problem? So I was looking at both. I was looking at the Mesoamerican representation of the codices and the staff of the Western African tradition and merging together and creating these pencils looking, drawing, linear element in the space. The other piece that I did actually in Mass College of Art earlier was called Erotic Garden or some annotation about hypocrisy. That really is a precedent for this piece. And they were some way somehow connected. When I did this piece, I wasn't aware, as I should be, of the work of Louise Bourgeois. Somebody that saw the piece mentioned to me a familiarity of the piece with her drawings. I didn't know, like anybody would know her drawing at that time because she was not showing then. But it was interesting for me. And of course, after I was more familiar with the work, I was just curious and intrigued by it. These are two other pieces from A Woman at the Border. In the very end of the wall is I am a fountain. And I am a fountain is a little phrase from a piece, Brazilian literature piece. Clarice Lispector wrote a book, and in the book, she called a woman body as a fountain. And I was kind of fascinated by that idea. But in the same time, I have some question about the idea. So yes, the body have milk coming out of the breast, tears coming out of the eyes, birth form coming out of the uterus, blood coming out of the vagina, shit coming out of the anus, and then the lips coming out of a spider that represent south and sinking. So I wanted to put this idea, and in the bottom is in clay, I am a fountain, both in Spanish and English, and I started using both language at that particular time. And my idea was that, yes, the woman body is this a vessel full of all this capacity, but also this vessel with this capacity for thinking, for reflection, for philosophy, for questioning, for all the other things. We don't use bodies that carrying baby. We're carrying ideas and possible powerful ideas. So I wanted to put that, and in the aspire, all these things are said. It say all the different liquids that come out of the body, but also thought and pensamientos. And at some point, that piece too, I was thinking that referred to the idea of fragmentation. I never saw the piece as dismembering the female body, but separating this different element of the female body and highlighting the possibility of each one of them could bring. It had been a piece that had been writing a lot about it. Susan Rubens Suleiman from the Romance language at Harvard University, including her work New Perspective for Contemporary, new perspective of beauty in contemporary art. And it had been really in many other publications, and is one of my favorite pieces of that particular time. To the side, and I don't know if I have another view of it, is a piece that is called When the Heart is Entrapped, the Body is a Slave. And this is a view of the piece. I wanted to make a commentary in that piece about race, about color. But I always thinking that as a painter, the rainbow belonged to me. So I don't have any obligation to represent blackness as black, of brown, of any of that, because not necessarily is that. So all that I did was turning the arms in this image, in this position, and showing dark and clear relationship, which only happen in a very dark skin. So it's a blue color that I use to represent the body, but it's representing at the same time a black body. And for me, that was very important to do in that way. In Latin American, there are a lot of melodramatic representation. You know, we cry, and it's all big drama. And the piercing heart is a very visible image. So, but this image comes from actually a Mesoamerican representation. So it's even before the Catholicism and Spaniards come to us, we still have a big drama as an important component of idiosyncratic build-up of the country. That is a view, and what I'm doing now is moving you through the space of the Indianapolis Museum. So to the right you have everything except talking about tree, when the heart is trapped, and in the end of the room you start to see birth certificate. But before you go there, we enter another room to the left, and this room have a piece that I did in 1993, and it was the beginning of a series that is going to have 3 parts, and it's called History of People Who Were No Heroes. And this is the first installment of that piece, and that one is called A Town Portrait. A town portrait was literally a representation of the town that I grew up, but also my ancestor, my great-grandfather, who was a Nigerian man who was brought to Cuba, was there too. And it was a sugar cane plantation. And when you enter the room, this is the first thing that you encounter. And this door referred to a door that is actually represented as a vignette in the glass. It's all etched in glass and transfers image in glass and a steel. And then I steal from Marcel Duchamp. Always I say the big glass. I always have, in a modest approximation, I was fascinated when I was a young artist with Marcel Duchamp, and I don't going to get in there why my fascination with him, but I'm thinking that he's perhaps the more important figure of the 20th century art scene. And many questions that he plays for art, I think that were important for me, and it's still important for me, and I think it's still important for what happened now. But so Duchamp did his big glass, and I wanted to do my little glass after Duchamp glass, and it was about this particular town. So as we going in, you see the door, and all the door have is a little description of the history that take place in the town. And I constructed the whole entire piece upon conversation with members of my family. I call my mother, my sister, my aunt, my nieces, and have a chain with them by telephone, by letters, by other people that bring things. And everything that they described to me was the element that I used to construct the piece. So they will tell me there was something that was made out of clay, and it was a tower, and I will build the tower out of clay, and I will inscribe in the clay the text that they have told me about it. So it was a literary using oral history to contextualize and to construct object. This is a very different approximation to a sculpture. I don't even going to call it a sculpture, to a three-dimensional object making upon memory and upon conversation to give body to a particular object. But this is the way that piece took place. The image in the back are 3 video vignettes that I will use to the entire process. And in the bottom is a fountain that my younger sister described it to me. She said that we used to go and play there. And what happened around that fountain, you need to go around in circles to read what it says inside. It's clay, fused glass, and copper embedded into clay. And I went through a long process of experimentation to do this piece. I was told that I cannot do it. It was too crazy because I was doing this glass ball depressed inside the fountain. But I was at Radcliffe residing at that time at Harvard, and it was this fabulous ceramic shop. They called me at that period the Queen of Tiles, and I managed to build this piece. As you see in the center is this depression of glass, and this is what you need to walk around, doing a sort of ring around the rosy. to read the information. I'm going to go a little fast because there's a lot of things to be seeing here, and I don't want anybody to fall asleep. So these are the texts in the different component of the piece. Every one of the elements describe one aspect of the town of La Vega where my ancestor left. And then we get out of there, and into the side is perhaps one of my first photographic projects. It's called Umbilical Cord. And I mean that I wanted to do a piece that was about connecting all the women in my family that were not with me together. So I asked photos of my mother, my sister, my nieces, all of them together, and put ourselves extending the left hand, which is in Latin America the hand of the heart, and here too, and putting this little stream of fabric and wire from vein to construct a kind of a linear link between all of us. And you see, I am a fountain to the tide. In front of Umbilical Cord is this piece, which is a print. It's a woodcut print, and it's called Birth Certificate. As I said, my work is very hybrid, and my relation to media is very orthodox. I really did this print, and I know that there are a few printmakers in the room, and my apologies to them, but the print for me was just making an edition of two, and using wood in the top and glass in the bottom, and making the edition just ended in two. So because it was about fingerprinting myself, I had been fingerprinted in the border. Not a criminal yet, but it's a rite of passage to enter any country, and specifically Americans, you come to Cuba, from Cuba. So I was fingerprinted, and I decided that I want to do that. And I went to a painstaking process. I fingerprinted myself, reversed the print, put a positive, cut a negative, printed positive. So it's a print that is not printed reverse, it's printed as my fingerprints. And I spent 6 months in that little piece, just crazy, doing the whole process of reversing my scene and cut it and put it back to make an edition of two. And he was saying, but you're crazy, are you going to print that again? I said, no, it's only two hands. So that's how I approach printmaking. 1992, I did this piece, which is an homage to my father. And it's just a little detail of the piece. It's called the herbalist tool. And the herbalist tool is a tradition of people from Africa, from Yoruba land, who go into the forest to collect plants for healing, for ritual, for medicines. My father was one of them. I used to go to the forest with him. And when you arrive into the forest, you knock in wood, ask for permission, put some offering, and he used to put cornmeal. So the 3 columns in this room are surrounded by cornmeal, and the 3 columns represent 3 different trees in Cuba: the royal palm, the ceiba, and the almacigo. They were around my house, as a matter of fact. And in the wall, there are little botanical frames with plants that my mother smuggled from Cuba to America for me. And in top of the benches, there are all kinds of plants that you can find both in Cuba and here. So when you enter that room, they are sound, they are smell, and they are seen to be seen. I did another robbery from Marcel Duchamp. He had this piece that is called the Tandonnet, that you need to look through the little door and see this later in the ground. It's called the waterfall too. What I did, I put little holes in the column, so you need to get close. And when you get close, there are text and narrative inside those columns. Plus, the inside of the column has been painted as imitating the bark of the outside of the tree. So it's a kind of reverse relation of inside out. And it's a really kind of surprising and delightful piece for people that are going to see it. In the top of the column is a glass base with the inscription of the name of the plant in Yoruba and in Spanish. And it's connected with the tradition in Cuba in which you put a glass container with water in a high place of the house to celebrate the soul and the spirit of the departed. And because it's an homage to my father, I wanted to do that. And in the bottom is a casserole inside the column. And the casserole is a tradition to put food to the spirit of the departed. Somebody in Miami found that they needed one of the casserole, and they just took it out of the exhibition. I have a history of being stole, but I am in good company. Rembrandt too. So I need to deal with that. So as you enter the room, is this big kind of a curtain or some sort of balloon, and inside the balloon is many images of plants from Cuba and Puerto Rico and Africa. I took many of the images in different places. And the herbalist tools are two scenes: a little piece of wood that is in the front, that is a garabato, and a machete that is used to cut the plants. So that is the herbalist tools. So we keep moving now. In the very end, it's a Polaroid photograph. It's part of a series that was called Identity Could Be a Tragedy. What a complicated phrase to say. And since I named that piece that way, I have always had been questioning myself and again thinking deeply about what did I came to that conclusion, that identity could be a tragedy. I always have thinking that people recognize themselves, and we as humans learn much about who we are when we engage with difference. That only when we step out of what is very recognizable to us, we could really understand who we are. So I think that I did that piece around 94 or 95, and there were so many conflicts in the war about identity as we are today in the war, in such a conflict about who are we that are not others. And I felt that a very compelling question for this time, and a one that we need to find ways to resolve. And as an artist, not a politician or anything else, I just wanted to say there that I found that the whole discussion about identity could be a tragedy rather than a reaffirmation. And I really believe that the response is in embracing the difference. And I am a deep believer of that. So back to Polaroid. I discovered the Polaroid camera and was introduced. I didn't discover the Polaroid camera. I was introduced to the Polaroid camera as part of my learning at the school of at Mass College of Art in 1998. Everybody was jumping in front of the camera and making faces and move on. So and I did that too and never come back to there. But in 1994, I have a show at the New Museum of Contemporary Art in New York, and I showed a piece that I put together before, Umbilical Core. And Jeff Keogh, who was the director of the exhibition at Mass College of Art, saw that piece and called me and say, Magda, would you be interested to use the 20 by 24 that is at Mass College of Art? And I say, oh, I don't even remember that. So I went to Mass College of Art and start a very long love relationship with the 20 by 24. What I discovered back in that, it was that I was interested in performance art, always had been, and I have done by that moment many performances that I am not necessarily talking about it. And in Polaroid, because the methodology was a possibility to really engage with that. So what I'm going to show you as we go into the show, they are different images of Polaroid investigation that I have done over the years. Because Polaroid quality, immediacy, performative possibilities that the camera allowed itself, I have been very intrigued to the possibility with it. And I am being interested to use both as a story for color, as a story for material, as a story to really questioning the separation and the gap, and what is photography, and what is painting, and what is performance. I just received maybe yesterday, an email from someplace in Europe when they discussing the question, is photography art? And I responded, yes, of course. Who asked that question anymore? So, and I really believe that. It's a question that has passed the time for that. Of course that is art, and of course there has been a lot of investigation in the last 20 years or so that respond that properly. And I have been trying to put some little element into that. So this is the dictic in the left is from the city that is called When I Am Not Here, Estoy Allá, which means I am there. And it's that. When I am not here, I am there. And there is many scenes, Cuba, other places, the heart, who knows. In the very end, it's a piece that is called Above All Sins. And what I always describe the piece is my homage to Robert Ryman. It's a story on whiteness. And it's a story of the texture, the quality, the different element of white. And I don't have a close-up of the image, but they are wet white, dry white, transparent white, painted white, pearls white, all of them, and it's beyond this black lady. So in the back of that is one of my favorite pieces. I keep that one. I don't keep much of my work. Many of these works are in collections, but I keep the blue one because it was the only scene that I did when I was pregnant with Arcadio. And I say to people, I used to feel exactly like that. I was just breastfeeding, and when I was not breastfeeding, I was producing milk. So I put these 2 bottles that are full of milk in top of the breast as a tautology of the milk delivery that a mother becomes in the period of nursery. So this is a piece from 1992, and this is a detail. I love carving, and I spent an entire year carving that piece. This is a detail of 7 elements. And the story of that piece is that it's a kind of perversive beauty in it. I remember the map of the slave, the abolitionist made to end the slave trade. And when I remember that map, I remember is that how beautiful, how precise, how economical, how kind of austere it was, minimal, but the cruelty behind. That is the way that the body of the African were laid out in the floor. And all that I did was carve it. So I used sweet pine, which is a very soft and wonderful material, and I carve all these different figures and different positions in it, and it's called The 7 Powers That Came by the Sea. And I haven't seen the piece in many years, many years, and I just saw it in Indianapolis. And when you enter the room, it smelled just delicious. I didn't know that sugar pine never ends smelling, and it's just overwhelming, the smell in the room. So this is a wall of different Polaroids. The very end is identity could be a tragedy, patria, una motherland or fatherland, a trap. Next is a trick that is called Los Caminos, and it's a story again, I would say colored and all that, texture and other elements are just going around. This is a piece from 1997. It's called Abridor de Caminos. And Abridor de Caminos is a little essay in fragmentation. And I am interested in film, and I am interested in the narrative of how film, when you edit, you build all these little scenes together to tell a story. And I was thinking the same, how could you do that in photography? How could you put 10 images, one by one, of the body, little by little, and construct a whole? So the images start in the upper left with the hands open, holding a stone, and they keep going, search, and it ends with the legs open, walking in this way, in this path that is in a kind of vanishing point. And it has many other meaning. It's actually about Elewa, which is a goddess of the path, of the way, the one that open and close the path. And this is what is the path. And this is what is called Abridor de Caminos, the one that opened the path. And the color that, in Yoruba tradition, Elewa is celebrated is red and black. But I use red and black too because they are just gorgeous, just a position of colors. But I wanted to celebrate this tradition in Yoruba practice. In the left is when I am not here, I am there, and it's the sea. Is many interpretations of the sea. I have done many of them. Now you are seeing again above all scenes in the center, susurro. Whispering, and it's a yellow and purple, and then in the very end it's called The Calling. And The Calling, I did it in maybe 2002, 2003, and the calling is that. In Yoruba tradition, you have a calling, and when you have a calling, you need to do something. You either become a Yoruba priest or something. I have a calling, but I didn't know what to do because I know that I couldn't be a priest. So I opened GASP, a small gallery to serve the art and the artists, because I believe that all my role in this life is connected with art, and I don't know. So I did that. this is another version of the seven powers came by the sea, and these are the deities. And they are all made with soil from Cuba, from Africa, from Canada, and then beads. And this is 1991, and in the bottom they are this collection of many, many faces of African people from the diaspora. And it's behind a photograph of my great-great-grandpa, who was Nigerian. It's a little text that said in English and Spanish, "Let's us never forget." And it's just a little precious on time. But it's what it says. Let's of never forget. And in the left is Yemaya, Ogun, Oshun, and Oshosi. These are all African deities. So this is walking in the other direction, and in the very end is this little photograph that is called December 17, and it's just a leg wrapped in flowers and purple color, and it have a hook attached to it, and walking. And this one is in the, but I don't say what everything is. This is the Whitney collection. But this is a part of a series of Polaroid called Nesting, and they are all connected with birds. And nesting, I wrote a little poem about it, which I don't remember from memory now, but it's about nesting as a place of refuge, nesting as a place that could create freedom and entrapment. And every one of these birds was given to me by my mother-in-law, and they are New England folk birds, and they are made on wood. They don't fly. So I was interested in that. Both the entrapment in your new location, this idea of belonging, separation. How do you become the scene that you enter? How do you become? How do I am ever going to become a Bostonian, an American? What that means for those birds that find home every other season in a place, but they keep migrating. And the question of migration and the question of nomadism and moving is something that is intrinsic to the history of the black body in the Western world. And that is a question behind, in a spinal cord question behind the construction of my work. And maybe it's here some way a little bit. Another nesting, and in the side back there is an image of the piece called Sacred Family. We will see it from another angle. And this is nesting number 4, which is in the collection of the Museum of Fine Art in Boston. And I was trying to do 2 scenes, photography, painting, drawing. And I was thinking about drawing with hair, drawing with my hair, and drawing with this kind of kinky hair, they call it. And so it's in there. And this is a little corner of family history. It's my mother and myself in a piece that is called Replenishing. And replenishing is just us getting together by this line of African beads. And in the other side is Arcadio, my son, in a relation both with my husband and myself. But what I say about that piece, it was I was coming back from from being in Italy, and I was totally fascinated with Caravaggio, and so was Arcadio. Caravaggio is his favorite painter. And I was thinking, how could I approach Caravaggio without being disrespectful and arrogant, and without people killing me for doing that? So I was thinking about just the nuances of light in Caravaggio and the delicacy of that. And the piece is built that way. It's only a hand, the hand of the kid and the mother of the hand of the kid with the father that is red. And it's in the collection of the Davis Museum. Eventually, when the piece is back, you guys could see it. This is in the the third part of the installment history of people who were no heroes. That piece premiered in Boston at the Visual Center in MIT, and it's 3 dresses that rest in the floor, and in the center of the west line is a video projection, and in the back is a video projection, and that is the view of then in Indianapolis. I cannot talk about any of my installation pieces without saying first, they don't happen alone, and they don't happen just by me alone and by the magic of my genius. I have many helpers with this, and among them, my husband, who we have been collaborators since I met him in 1998, doing a film, a very early piece. And I worked in that piece for 3 years, just casting glass. And I did the piece in the Brooklyn glass shop in New York. And I was doing literally daily trips back and forth to New York for the casting of this. They are around 350 glass element that I cast in this. It's pâte vert. And I always say the pâte vert is the closest scene to painting with glass that you could get. And it really, I mean, when you see this piece in the flesh, they are really painting. You could have literally every kind of nuance of color and modulation of it, and it's really rich. The other element in the piece is fabric, and they are embroidery fabric and fabric as an inner element in it. And so there are a lot of, before this piece, maybe the other one is this piece that is called Spoken Softly with Mama, a song annotation about, Spoken Softly with Mama is the title of this one. And the previous one is Meanwhile the Girl Were Playing. And again here, they are textile, and I promised to one of the students that I was working with this afternoon that I would show it to her, the little benches that I built with ebony from the exotic woods in Fresh Pond in Boston. So these are the little benches that are ebony, and I bought the wood in Fresh Pond exotic woods. And in top of the benches are these linen. They have been embroidered, and one say, for beauty, for necessity, and for survival. And when you enter the room, you are placed in front of this little chamber, and in top of each of this pile of fabrics are video projections, and the front side of the fabric had been embroidered, and it say embroidered for who the women in the family have done work. And this piece really was built, it was constructed as an homage to the women in my family who did labor for other women. But I never have any knowledge or introduction to that as a Pittsford Seal scene. And my mother always talked about, oh yes, we did laundry and we did ironing because we wanted you guys to do something else. So it was the supporting of the launching board for my sister and myself to do whatever we wanted to do, for me to be talking here to you. So it was some sort of, what I say, resiliency and elegance that was intrinsic to this woman, an incredible sense of confidence and beauty. And I always say, I am feminist by home. I didn't become a feminist reading any of the writers. I become a feminist looking and listening to my mother, who told me, you could do anything that you want to do. The war is all you, and get out and do it. And that was something really quite spectacular to me, and I wanted to celebrate that. So I turned the ironing board in this shield, these weapons, and just put all these women in top of them as goddess, because what they were and what they are. So all of them are women that are not alive any longer. In the image is my aunt, my grand-aunt, my grandmother, and my grandmother. And in the three other boards, they are always running 15-minute video projections of narrative connecting with women that are alive. And I always say about this piece, if I don't make it and somebody made it, I will be very jealous. But I am glad that I did it myself. And it's a piece that is very rich and texture and material. It has a lot of sound, a lot of video, and it really, you need to be there and spend time with it, and quite wonderful. I'm happy that when you live in, that's another way to escape the room. You see different, and the piece is always reconfigured in different ways. So I am back now to my Polaroid Odyssey, and here I took it in a large kind of idea, And I just coming back from Italy again, and I am totally out of my mind with Raphael and all these other guys, and I want to be as good as them, but how I could think of that? But I am thinking, yes, I am going to do something quite close to those fresco, and I'm going to do it just with Polaroid. So I got totally out of my mind, and starting to put together these very many panels, and in the very end of the right is elevata, and elevata, I have said this very few times, I'm going to say tonight, I was walking in the street of Venice, and you know that they sell this little scene with the name of people, and I just found my name, Maddalena Elevata, and then I grasped it and I say, oh my God, Elevata is Maddalena. So I called the piece Elevata is Magdalena upside down, and it's about either both the heavens of the ocean. I no have any idea. I feel it's in between. And in the right, in the left, is Rhapsody. I don't know. Maybe I need to come back there. Here. Rhapsody, it was about turmoil and tornado and desperation, some kind of that. So I use red for it to be a little bit more, and it's about that. But what to say about these pieces? I am really pushing here my conversation between painting and photography. I paint a lot before I shoot. I use a lot of props, hair, three-dimensional elements, and really create a theater of some sort, and then put it all together in the end to build these pieces. To the left is classic Creole. I was just coming back from Senegal and Dakar, and I come in with all these beads in my hair and in my hand, and these fabrics, and the color of Dakar. Dakar is yellow, saffron, some way, somehow. So I made this piece, a classic Creole. And let's see what is to the left, to the right is constellation. And constellation is that, is constellation. I kind of dream this space of abstractness, organic, immense, deep, but in the same time with proximity. So you really look the piece, they are a little bit of my hair in the top and in the bottom, and it is stretched from from corner to corner. So this is a piece too about corners, finding this corner and constructing. I always say that the piece, when it's seen in the flesh, if you look at the piece in the left side to the right, it moves from dry to wet, completely dry to wet in the feeling of the space. And this body of work was an interesting investigation for me for installation. As you getting out of the space, the last piece that we have in the exhibition was this piece that is called Threads of Memory. And Threads of Memory is 5 large video projection cast polymer instead of glass in this case, and this reflective floor. And I saw really about this piece as a pool of reflection, and they had a lot of a story of color in it. As you spend 3 minutes with the piece, the whole room change from cool to other color to other colors, and all these elements is always in between you and the screen, and they are really interpretation of windows, colonial windows in Cuba, or colonial windows, not colonial, imperial windows in the metropolis in some way, somehow. And it's always about putting yourself behind and trespassing, entering these two spaces. This is another moment, another color pool in the reading of the room. It's a very lyrical piece, and there are many lyrical moments in my work, I believe. I am interested in poetry. I love poetry. Poets sustain me. I am not a good writer of poetry, but I am a good consumer of poetry. And I saw that it was a way for me to do some kind of visual poetry, some way, somehow, in the physical space that my body, that my work could inhabit. As you leave the room, we designed these 2 chairs, and the chairs have been inspired, and the lamp has been inspired by an early piece. I am a fountain. That is the tear that was coming out of the eye of the lady. And the blue, of course, of the ocean. And this is two places for people to use to read material, and that you live in the space. And then the Indianapolis, they went all the way, and they create a lot of Magda products. So I'm going to have a little sale here when we finish. No, I'm kidding. But you could have umbrellas, T-shirts, catalogs, all kind of Magda items and paraphernalia. And this is another image of the store. And as you go in, and as you so you go in, and one of the posters that they use for the exhibition. And I'm going to show you very quickly another piece, and then I'm going to let you. We're going to see the piece quickly, and I'm going to take the questions, but I'm going to let this run and see this scene work quickly and get out of here as soon as I need it. So I'm just going to show you a performance that I did the day of the opening. Performance has been a very important territory for me. I have done it since 1988. For a while, used for the camera, and later used in the public. The first performance that I did, it was in the public, was 1990, and I was a very young, disgruntled woman, and I found that I wasn't ready to be in an opening entertaining people. I wanted people to put attention to my work, and just that, so I performed these very little angry scenes. But here I was a little more relaxed. I'm going to let you see it. It's a few minutes, and then I take questions. I decided to make a piece that was called Gift, Regalos. But very little is wanted is given away to the public. So Regalos create a situation in which I bring myself as a maker, and at the same time, I propose myself as a taken. I am to give it away myself. Each one of them is an original piece. They are scenes in the back of them. Time and trouble may tame a wild young woman, but a wild old woman is uncontrollable by any force.
Please join us now in Pulliam Great Hall for the world premiere performance of Regalos, Gifts by Maria Magdalena Campos-Pons. A regalo is a gift, a gesture to extend the self into the other as a way to communicate meaning. The artist's body constructs a bridge, a memory line that conducts information to the audience. A gift, a gesture of proximity between the artist's persona and you.
I come to you with the energy of my ancestor, with my history, with a gift from the past to the present, to the future. I come to you with a gift. With a gift. The gift of faith. The gift of paz. De la paciencia. De la prosperidad. The gift of friendship, the gift of truth, the gift of beauty, the gift of purity, of happiness, the gift of return, of honesty, of tolerance, the gift of liberty, of negotiation, the gift of passion, the gift of remember, the gift of forgive. I come to you to share my history, to share my body, to share my bounty, my belief, my insecurities, my hope, my necessity, my desire. I come to you to share what I believe in, what I doubt, what I want, what I expect, what I still caring for, and I'm hoping for. I came with you here to share my history.
Este lado dormido donde se oye, it is the sleeping one of the dream.
I invite any of you to join to me and take them out here. It's all for you to be taken, one at a time. Because it takes a little longer, what I'm going to do is to, I let you keep seeing it. I could say a few things about the performance. There are two artists that I really wanted to celebrate during this performance. One is Felix Gonzalez Torres, and the other one is Yoko Ono. I always had been, I was very emotional when in 1995, I believe, I witnessed the retrospective of Felix Gonzalez Torres at the Guggenheim Museum, and I remembered everybody leaving the museum with this roll of paper that was for people to take. And it gave me, make a really profound impression on me about that gesture. I talk a lot about it in my classes. I saw there was a very democratic way of thinking, and really to questioning the elitism about how art is acquired, collected, all of that. So what I tried to do here was to really break down from that pattern and back to Felix Gonzalez Torres and giving away all these little pieces that I have drew to individuals to take it home, whoever came to me and took it. And that's the way that worked. One of the ladies that was in the hotel that I stay every time that I was in Indianapolis, who is a waitress who never had been in an opening, next morning come to me and say, I have your piece in a safe. So I say to her, you don't need to put it in a safe. But it was this kind of really interesting, anybody who came have a little original art piece. And I was thinking too about Yoko Ono, her piece with the dress, when she allowed people to come and cut her dress out of her body. It's very a situation of vulnerability, but also you have a lot of trust in the audience. And these two performances, these two artists, are artists that I always in my head have as a reference and a gesture that I want to emulate and that I think about. So that's what this performance was about. That's what I call it, regalos. You that looking at the tape now know what was in the bag, in the bags, but nobody, including the people at the museum, know that I was doing those littered books with the drawing. So for them, when they opened the bags, they were totally surprised, and it was a really funny exclamation of surprise in the room when they actually, I asked them to, I live in the room now, you could open your bags and share. So in any case, that was the idea of regalos for me, and it was an important performance. I worked in the litter drawing for over a year. I made every one of the books myself, handmade. So there are a lot of what I say, giving of the body, giving of the self in the process. And then in the last week, I needed to rush in Indianapolis to finish all the many that I wanted to produce. And I am leaving now. And that's pretty much is the end of the performance. So I'm going to take any question now from you guys. So we could turn the light, and if anybody have question, comment, I am happy to answer. Jerry. Well, and when I say early on, when I was pretty young, I actually wrote about Duchamp in my early 20s, a whole paper that had been published in Cuba. But my idea was that he proposed an idea about reading in a space and reading the bidimensionality of a particular object, in that case the glass, that allowed you to enter an understanding of a space in a dimension that is beyond bidimensionality. So I am thinking that for the question of installation art, that is the beyond and before and after, and really understanding a space as memory, the big glass is really important. My theory about that is that the big glass is the only a structure of close to the construction of a painting in which you are seeing through and in between what the object defines. So you have here an object that contains information, but the object allows you to move behind and access what is behind. And this is a kind of metaphorical understanding of the reading of the space. I always thinking that when we talk about installation, about space, we say installation is about a space as time. Time as a visual condition, as a retinal condition, it's very hard to capture. This is what we do it. We put it in painting, we put it in film, we put it in different ways. But when you are with a big glass, you have the physicality of that. You have the glass in between and the wall behind, the light that passed through the wall. I just recently saw the second version of the Hamilton did of the glass at the Tate Modern in London. The other one is at the Philadelphia Art Museum, and it's a little window in the upside that let light come through and see it through. But then you see all that. You have the glass, you have the chocolatier machine, you have the bright in the top, you have everything, and you have the space behind. You have this one dimension, the object, and this other dimension at once. So this idea of time, the time that takes the eye to reach the whole information, and a space in between is all at once. I love that. I really love, and also I think that glass is memory, because memory is a fragile, delicate condition. It's a break apart, it's a scatterer, but in the same time, all the little fragment could be picked up and reconstructed in some way, somehow, like the glass. It was broke and it was put together. So there are all these metaphorical scenes, and I didn't say that in my talk, but when I use glass and no polymer in my Spoken Softly with Mama, the iron, and the trivets, it's because I am interested in that condition. These are memory, that these things hold a particular fragility that is not present in other material. In no other material they have a durability. And also, the tendonnet is a piece that he worked for many, many years, and it's a little box. But when you look through the whole, it's a whole universe. So it's almost have a cinematic component to it, film in some way. And among the things that I am curious about him, not to mention his performance activity, not to mention his transgender activities, not to mention his accent of work, but thinking and the idea of the time that the brain is consumed to produce ideas, an important production part of what art is about. I really interested in all of that, and I think that is without Duchamp gesture, we would not have many of the 21st century artists that we celebrate. And that's one part of that I am interested. There are many other artists. I tend not to mention many of. I love many artists. I really, including you. I have really reverie for many, many, many artists of my time. In fact, so many. And the way that I fulfill that is in my teaching. I try to teach with a lot of passion with the artists that I absolutely fascinated with. And I really have a lot of tolerance for diverse form of art. So I am, in some ways, I could consume a lot of different things. I am very interested in film. I am very interested in music. I was even more interested in those. I think that I am actually now removed from what happened. I know a lot of what happened in the end of the century in film. I know nothing about what is happening now. I am really behind. I suppose that is because I am doing other things, wifing, mothering, etc. But I hope that this answered your question. Go ahead.
You can talk in more detail about the different conditions of producing artwork and artistic production and practices in Cuba and in the United States.
Oh, that is a vast, immense charms of difference. What is interesting, first of all, in Cuba, the artists don't have half of the auctions and that we have here. When I came to study here in 1998, I was just mesmerized, used to seeing the variety of possibilities, materials, etc. But what is interesting and intriguing and has been for me maybe a very important thing is in Cuba, there are an immense sense of survival, an immense sense of you produce with what you have. It's never a limitation. I always tell people when they complain about space, I have produced entire exhibition in a space that was 7 feet by 9. And when I didn't have a jigsaw, I would cut something with a knife, kitchen knife, through. And that was the jigsaw. When I saw the jigsaw for the first time in 1988, I was like, oh my God, heaven. You know, so they are very, very big difference. But I think that is in the end, the result, the end result is really interesting because it's a very maybe the best response to your question is not about art. It's about in Cuba, all the machinery that is still working is everything that was produced, mostly that was produced in America before 1959, and it's still going and running, from television to cars to refrigerator to, so this kind of retooling and pushing and keeping fixing and going is something that fed the art world as well. And it's amazing the imagination. I was in a conversation with a Cuban sculptor recently, and he was doing a whole set of computers and cell phone, and always that he called mango technology. And you know, we have Apple technology here, and in Cuba, mangoes are like Apple here. So he called his line of product mango technology, and it's all made of wood and funny, cranky, but absolutely ingenious and beautiful.
It's really, really beautiful. He have done this literary, like the green box from Duchamp. It's a box that you buy not for little money. It's $10,000. I couldn't buy it. And then you could build your own sculpture, whatever you are. He sent it to you by mail. So it's a really rich and interesting. You guys may know I don't go to Cuba that often, but I have been back there several times and just following what is the presence of Cuban artists living in the country outside. Is very rich, definitely very rich. Yes?
How close is your final piece in a space to your original concept, or does it change according to the space and the light?
They change, but I came very close to what I dream. When I say that I sleep very little, I mean it. And I spend hours and hours in the evening, sometimes thinking about scenes. And sometimes they came very close. Sometimes they change significantly. But yes, I say that sometimes they are close. I have been very fortunate, I have to say, and I have had many opportunities to create pieces that have been commissioned by institutions. So literally, every single one of the pieces that you have seen tonight, they are pieces, except the very early body of work that I produced for an institution, ICA, MoMA, MIT, National Gallery of Canada. So I have had the plan in hand, I have had the institution access in hand. So I haven't, the latest body of work after that exhibition, I moved to Italy, and I lived in Italy for 9 months, and I produced an entire new body of work that was for a particular institution there, is in Europe. So, yes, they are a very particular relationship about this, and I say I have been very fortunate. And I am pretty much in that mode at this moment. I am just doing work for, how you say, I have exhibition in road until 2010 or something. So I know what I'm going to be working on, what is the work that I need to produce. That is good, very good, and we never complain about that. And on the other hand, it would be nice just to know how, well, I mean, say, it's interesting the other way around too. And I did that for many years when I was a very young artist in Cuba too. You're welcome. Go ahead.
You love poetry. I wonder if you'd be willing to share some of the names of the poets that have inspired you.
All right. I'm going first to say for you one in Spanish. Is anybody tolerant in Spanish? It say, Caperuza del alma, está en lo oscuro el lobo, y te mira desde su roca de miseria, su soledad, su enorme hambre. Tú le preguntas, ¿por qué tienes los ojos tan grandes? Y él responde, para mirarte, solo para mirarte. Okay, it's about Little Red Riding Hood, and it's Eliseo Diego, a Cuban poet. And he asked Little Red Riding Hood, why do you have this eye that big? And she answered, just to look at you, and keep talking about that. Cesar Vallejo, Rainer Maria Rilke, among some of the poets that are interesting, Antonio Machado, Manuel Fernandez, who else? Walt Whitman, American, and Plath. I mean, many, yes, many poets.
I'm curious, Magda, about your relationship to the camera. You are in front of it, and I'm thinking of this in context to the glass and the window. So you are in front of the camera at some points, and then of course, once the image is printed, you're on the other side of it. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, you're talking about the Polaroids, correct? Or you're talking about, because in the video sometime too, they are two scenes, never with open eyes. Never with open eyes. And always, what I say, it's not me who is in front of the camera. It's the persona that I construct that is in front of the camera. So I never think, and it's really, I let many people, not many people, but several people, my dealers, writers have come to session in which I am shooting a Polaroid. It's a very intense process. I literally get ill. I have a shooting in which I come out literally exhausted. But no exhausted of physical exhaustion, it's energy exhaustion. So I don't ever think about, people ask me who is the woman. And depending on my mood, I answered, is me or is a model? Depends who plays the question. But people are in front of me with the first say, who is the model? I say, oh, what depends. So they are a detachment, and really, it's something I do a lot of meditation sort of space before I decide to shoot. I drew every single one of the image ahead of time to know exactly what I'm doing, especially when the image need to have very specific link from one frame to another when it's not just one image. And yes, it's a performative experience. It's never, it's like, and I don't know how to explain to you what kind of draining of energy goes into doing this performance. I maybe look calm and relaxed, but I am close to dropping, literally. So it's really, so it's that. It's no, I'm never thinking about me. I'm thinking about this character, that I am building to construct the image. And that's the way that I see it. So that I could talk with separation and in some ways, somehow, and the story that had been inscribed, the way that I use makeup, the element that I use to change or not change my body, that is all important. I don't know if that answered your question.
Thank you all very much.
You're welcome. Thank you all.